By the end of this video, you'll uncover something that could completely shift your entire perspective on procrastination. It's not laziness, poor time management, or a lack of discipline, and beating yourself up over it is only making things worse. Here's the catch. Right now, you're probably treating procrastination like a character flaw, something that can only be conquered with sheer willpower. But the truth? Procrastination is your brain's way of protecting you from something far deeper and more vulnerable than just not wanting to work. Have you ever caught yourself procrastinating for hours on something important? Feeling miserable the entire time? Knowing you should just start, but still you can't? You're not enjoying the avoidance. You're not even relaxing. You're stuck in this painful limbo between wanting to get it done and being completely unable to begin. The thing about procrastination is, it's not really about the task at hand. It's rarely about time, either. And here's the real kicker. The tasks you procrastinate on most are often the ones that matter to you the most. The ones where the stakes are highest, where your sense of self feels most at risk. So what's really happening when you procrastinate? And why does trying to power through it only make everything spiral further? Let's start by busting one of the biggest myths about procrastination. It's not a time management problem, and it's not about not knowing how to prioritize or organize your day. You already know what needs to get done. You know when it needs to be done. You've probably planned it, scheduled it, and set multiple reminders. But when it's time to act, you just don't. Instead, you find yourself doing anything but the task. Scrolling mindlessly, cleaning things that don't need cleaning, organizing stuff that wasn't even on your radar 5 minutes ago. Here's the truth. If procrastination were really about time management, those planners, productivity systems, and apps would solve it. But they don't. And that's because the real reason behind procrastination goes far deeper than just managing your calendar. Dr. Timothy Feichel, who spent years researching procrastination, found that it's actually about emotion regulation, not time management. It's not the task you're avoiding. It's how that task makes you feel. The anxiety, the self-doubt, the fear of not being good enough, the overwhelm of not knowing where to even begin. Here's the kicker. As soon as you think about starting the task, your brain anticipates all that discomfort. Not physical pain, but emotional discomfort like anxiety, inadequacy, or fear of failure. And it does exactly what brains are wired to do. It avoids that discomfort by redirecting your attention to anything else, even if it's not important at all. But let's talk about the emotional discomfort that comes with procrastination. What are you really afraid of when you put things off? For most of us, it's not the work itself. It's what the work represents. It's the fear of failing, of not being as good as you hoped, or of realizing that your best effort isn't good enough. It's the worry that your work won't be impressive, that you'll disappoint yourself or others. Think about the tasks you put off the most. Are they the easy, low-stakes ones? Probably not. They're the important ones, the ones where the outcome actually matters, the ones where you'll be judged, or where your competence, creativity, or worth feels exposed to the world. Here's what's really going on. Procrastination is actually a form of self-protection. By not starting, you're protecting yourself from the fear of failure. If you don't finish the task, you can always tell yourself, I could have done better if I just had more time, instead of confronting the possibility that your best might not be enough. Dr. Joseph Ferrari's research on procrastination and self-worth shows that people who procrastinate often tie their sense of value to their achievements or the approval of others. So every task becomes a judgment on your worth as a person, which makes getting started feel like a huge risk. But here's the truth. While procrastination may offer temporary relief, it comes with a cost. The relief of avoiding the task is always replaced by guilt, shame, and mounting anxiety as the deadline gets closer. You're not really protecting yourself. You're just swapping one kind of discomfort for another, often a much worse one. Now let's talk about something that's deeply tied to procrastination: perfectionism. Here's something most people don't realize. Procrastinators are often perfectionists in disguise. You might be thinking, but I'm not a perfectionist. My work is never perfect because I always leave it to the last minute. But that's exactly the point. Procrastination is actually protecting you from facing the gap between your high standards and the reality of your work. Here's where it gets tricky. If you start the task with plenty of time, you lose that excuse. If the work isn't perfect, you can't blame it on not having enough time. You have to face the fact that it just isn't perfect. And maybe you're not perfect either. That's hard. But if you wait until the last minute, then you've got a built-in excuse. If the work doesn't turn out great, you can tell yourself, well, I just didn't have enough time. Your ego stays protected. You get to hold on to the illusion that you could have done it perfectly, if only you had more time. Dr. Piers Steele's temporal motivation theory shows that as deadlines get closer, the cost of not doing the task becomes so immediate that it finally outweighs the emotional discomfort of actually doing it. So you start, not because you've conquered the fear of failure, but because the fear of facing the consequences of doing nothing has finally become bigger than the fear of not being good enough. But let's talk about something that really makes procrastination worse: shame. Because here's the thing, it's not just the task you're avoiding, it's the spiral of self-judgment that follows. And that's what really makes everything feel even harder. You procrastinate, and then what happens? You feel guilty. And the guilt makes you feel worse about yourself. Now, not only do you have to face the task, but you've got this extra weight of shame hanging over you. So, what do? You avoid it even more. And that avoidance just keeps the cycle going. Guilt, shame, more avoidance, and the task feels even more overwhelming. Here's what's happening behind the scenes. Shame is one of the most paralyzing emotions we experience. Dr. Brené Brown's research shows that shame doesn't push us to change. It makes us hide, avoid, and repeat the very behavior we're ashamed of. So when you catch yourself thinking, I'm so lazy, I'm such a procrastinator, why can't I just get this done? You're not motivating yourself. All you're doing is piling on more shame, which makes the task feel even more emotionally loaded, making you want to avoid it even more. The truth is, shame isn't helping. It's just feeding the procrastination cycle, keeping it running longer and stronger. So, what actually works? How do you break the procrastination cycle when willpower and self-criticism clearly don't seem to get you anywhere? First, you need to recognize what's really going on. You're not lazy, you're scared. And that fear is trying to protect you, though it's actually making things worse. The next step is to separate the task from your worth. This project, this assignment, it's not a reflection of your value as a person. It's just something that needs to be done. If it's not perfect, that doesn't mean you're inadequate. And starting it imperfectly, that doesn't make you any less capable. Then you can make the task less emotionally overwhelming by breaking it down into ridiculously small steps. Instead of thinking, I have to write this whole essay, which sounds impossible, start with just one tiny action. Open the document. That's it. Then maybe write one sentence. That's all. You're not committing to finish. You're just taking the tiniest first step, which makes the emotional barrier to starting practically disappear. And finally, this is huge. You need to practice self-compassion instead of self-criticism. When you catch yourself procrastinating, instead of saying, why am I like this? Try saying, this is hard, and I'm anxious about it, and that's okay. I'm doing my best. Dr. Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion shows that treating yourself with kindness when you're struggling actually increases your motivation and helps reduce procrastination. procrastination. Why? Because it removes the shame that's keeping you stuck. Remember that paradox we started with? That procrastination isn't about laziness or time management. Here's what I need you to understand. You're not procrastinating because you don't care. You're procrastinating because you care so much that the possibility of failing or disappointing yourself feels unbearable. And the way forward isn't through force or discipline or hating yourself into productivity. It's through understanding what you're actually afraid of, treating yourself with compassion, and making the emotional barrier to starting small enough that you can step over it. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're just human, trying to protect yourself from pain in a way that's creating more pain. And maybe understanding that is the first step toward doing things differently. Not perfectly, just differently.